Welcome back to part 2 in this series about what makes men and women attracted to one another. I've talked about in the previous episode about the mathematical symmetry of being beautiful. And I can also say that it's more important to men that women are symmetrical than it is for women to be attracted to symmetrical men. So it's more important to men than it is women. And that's why, as a designer, we always have to consider round corners and symmetrical shapes if a product is being used by, for example, a male more than a woman. Because the man psychologically likes to be in a system if it's symmetrical. But let's talk about why do women look for men with good financial prospects, high social status and ambition? Well, in order for you to understand why a woman does that, you need to also understand that when a woman wants to get pregnant and have a child, there's a lot of risk involved. Firstly, she wants to reproduce with good genes, which means that her children will be healthy and grow up safe. That is also why she looks for these types of traits in a man, because first of all, go back in history. It wasn't as easy as it is now for women in equal countries to have a child, for example, by herself and support herself and her kids, which you can do more or less today. But in history, women had to rely on men in order for them to survive during pregnancy and get fed good nutrition so that the child would grow up with as high as one can get when it comes to IQ, because you're born with IQ and you can only lower your level of IQ of your children by giving them bad nutrition. Anyhow, women take a huge risk just getting pregnant, even today, but the medical field is much better today than it was before. And during labor, many women, actually mothers, did die, and their infants also died. So in order for a woman to make sure that she survives and her children survives until adulthood, she needed to find a good, suitable man to, one, make her survive her pregnancy when she can't fend for herself, and make sure that she and the child survives until the child is an adult and can build a family of her own or his own. So when you judge a woman that she's after a man's resources, think again. There's a lot more at stake for a woman than there is for a man. That has also been proven in social apps, for example, Tinder. Women, when they studied this, women swipe left 70% of the time. And that is because she knows her value and how good she looks, and she measures that with the guy. And she also thinks about things like social status of the man and other prospects like that. So that is also why she swipes left so many times, because she's actually doing the investment. The man isn't. And that's also shown on Tinder, because guys, which are mostly oblivious to their value when it comes to attractiveness, they swipe right more than 90% of the time. Sort of hit and miss strategy. Women are more in touch with how they look and what sort of value they have when it comes to attractiveness. And that's what they compete with other women for good males. Anyhow, where else can we see that this sort of study that the University of Texas has performed back in 2015? Well, they've also done studies on the most popular music tracks that is out there. And for example, if we look at music tracks that are aimed for women and read their lyrics, one good example is No Scrubs with TLC. That tune alone has been played 609 million times on Spotify alone so far. And that speaks about men that shouldn't go after women with a borrowed car, for example, or no money or no job, which indicates that they do find men attractive with ambition, higher social status and good financial prospects. But what about men and music and famous lyrics? Well, one famous one is Mo Money that has been done with the notorious Big and P. Diddy. That tune has been played 300 million times on Spotify alone so far, and that is also a good indicator of that research actually fits the bill. What else have they done to test this out to make sure that it actually fits the bill, so to speak? Well, they put a woman, the same woman, in a nice Bentley, expensive car, and the same woman in a cheap, inexpensive car. For the men to rate her as attractive in either the inexpensive car or the expensive one, she was equally attractive in both cars, meaning that men do not care about a woman's social status. But they put the same guy in the same Bentley and in the same cheap car, and the women had to judge in which car the man was more attractive. It turns out he was only attractive in the rich and pricey Bentley. When it comes to the cleanliness of things like a pricey Bentley or a crappy car or a cleaned up apartment or a disorganized apartment, well, purely psychologically speaking, the personalities of a woman, the mean of their personality when it comes to conscientiousness, and that is the trait which is connected to the feeling of disgust and organization and being an industrious person which works hard and have a bit ambition. That is proven also being attractive in men for women. So that is why women only find the man attractive in the Bentley and the nice high-end apartment, because it's connected to conscientiousness in the personality, which has been proven is the single most important personality trait that makes a person be effective and actually gather resources and have a good job and make money. Don't confuse women, ordinary women, with gold diggers. Gold diggers is an antisocial behavior which is in fact lying and being deceitful. That is an antisocial behavior. The worst criminals that are in jail have only 4 antisocial behaviors. And examples of antisocial behaviors per definition is lying and being deceitful, using a lot of alcohol, using a lot of drugs, being promiscuous, for example, and a load more traits like being aggressive. Bear in mind, the worst criminals only have 4 out of 12 characteristics. So don't go confusing gold diggers with ordinary women, because most women are not gold diggers. They just want to have a family. But what about women and aggressive men? Well, you see, a woman needs to protect herself and her children because she wants to survive herself and for her kids to be protected. So that's a good trait to have as a male, and that's also why it's attractive to women. That's why women also go for tall men that are muscular, because that man can actually fend for her and protect her. The problem is psychological, because an aggressive man is also dangerous to her and the child, because that type of personality is not controllable. So that's usually a deceitful trait for women, because they think they can handle the man, and that's a good trait. But it's in reality, it never pans out, because he usually is too aggressive towards the wife or woman and the children, unfortunately. So that's a big gamble to go for men that are aggressive. Another problem for women that goes for aggressive men is that as children grow up, they watch their parents negotiate and talk. And if parents are not able to communicate in a proper manner, that child will not learn in childhood how to negotiate and how to actually interact with the opposite sex. That also is something they take into adulthood when they go to work. So they have a disability when it comes to negotiating and communicating with other co-workers, and that might actually limit their possibility of getting high social status or good financial prospects if you're a guy, and for a woman to even get a job. So it's very important that women and men choose a proper partner in order to be able to communicate in a calm manner over differences. Because in the end, we need to get along, even though we are attracted to each other. What else we can say about women's attraction in men and the problem with attraction going away? It turns out that if a woman raises a child by herself without a man, there is no so-called rough and tumble play with the child. That is important, it turns out, for the child to learn where the limit is for hurting themselves and feeling pain or hurting someone else. Kids that grow up without rough and tumble play have a difficult time adjusting in the world and don't know really where the limit is when using physical force. And that's why you see grown-up people that haven't had rough and tumble play during childhood with their father to use physical violence when they compete with other people in adulthood, which is not very good. So as I said before, men look for younger women and women look for older guys. It turns out that women prefer men that are on average 3 to 5 years older than her, because if a guy is older than her, he had more time to gain resources and social status. But men look for 3 to 5 years younger women than themselves because that's better for them and more risk-free that she will be infertile the younger she is. And that is due to women being the only mammal on Earth that hides their ovulation or the time period when she can get pregnant. All other mammals actually show when they can get pregnant in order to do that. Scientists argue that women hid their ovulation towards men so that men won't impregnate them. But now they have reached a different conclusion and another theory as to women are actually competing with other women for good prospects, males. And that's why they hide ovulation for other women, for example, to find a proper man. When it comes to female beauty and what men look for, you've probably seen the filters on Instagram where all the defects are taken out of females' skin. Turns out that clear skin is an indicator for men that the woman is healthy. A healthy woman will produce a healthy child. And of course, if a man is going to invest in a woman, he wants to make sure that his children, first of all, survive and that they are healthy growing up. And that's an indicator to reproduce with good genes. And that's why men tend to look for women with clear skin, and that's why women use filters and retouch their images in order to look immaculate and beautiful. And as a photographer, I can say that we always adjust pictures that we take, photographies, and we do take out all blemishes and all those things in order for the woman to look better. That's what they pay for. I mentioned that men go for younger women, and some of you might have gotten upset about that and don't like that older men go for younger women. But here's the thing. Daughters that are born with older parents and older fathers actually are attracted to men that have older facial features. That goes for both men and women. So there's no difference. So we shouldn't be judging men for looking for younger women, because that woman might actually be attracted to older men, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's what it is. It's called sexual imprinting, and it occurs between a child and their parents before puberty, even before they actually are sexually mature. There is also an upside for a woman to date and be attracted to an older guy, because age makes him able to collect resources and get a higher social status. But the baseline for reproducing or making babies, so to speak, is that both men and women want to reproduce their own genetics, their own genes. So that is why people actually look for similarities in the opposite sex to reproduce, because it increases the likelihood of their genes actually manifesting or showing off in their children. That is why science has also proven that the first person that says, "Oh my God, the child looks so much like you," that is actually the mother's mother that says to the father of the child, in order for the father to not be suspicious if in case the woman has been messing around. But what are the similarities that has been proven in science that we look for in a partner? It has been reported women and men look for similar facial traits, eye color, facial symmetry, relative body weight, body shape, obesity, body height, perceived attractiveness, sensation-seeking, broad interests, insecurities, self-discipline, quietness, ruthlessness, cognitive abilities, and intelligence. But that's not all. We also look for similarities in disorders. For example, alcoholism, generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorders, panic disorder, and phobias. For example, afraid of heights, afraid of public speaking, and things like that. But what is sexual imprinting? Well, sexual imprinting is basically when you grow up, before you get into puberty, how your parents look like will determine what you look for in a partner when you get older. And there's nothing you can do about that attraction. That attraction actually sticks for life. But there's a caveat to it. Women that are born to older fathers look for older facial traits in a partner, but only if she had a good relationship with her father. The same could be said for men and their relationship with their mother. They actually look for hair and eye color in a partner growing up if they had a good relationship with their mother, but also if their mother rejected them as a child. So there's a difference between men and women when it comes to the relationship to the opposite sex parent. So now let's talk about psychology and personality traits that are attractive to men and women. The 4 proven traits that men and women like are that they want to be similar than themselves is extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and openness. And I'll tell you why that is important. Have you ever met someone that you cringe when you talk to because they're not like you? And that's due to personality and the way they think and reason in the world and about the world. You see, if you're an extroverted person, you actually enjoy more sex than an introverted person, and that gives you dopamine as well. An introverted person doesn't produce as much dopamine as an extroverted person. So there's a huge difference on how you go about living your lives. That's why you should find someone that is equally extroverted as you or equally introverted as you. When it comes to conscientiousness, well, conscientiousness is the single one trait that has been proven makes for success in life, because you're ambitious when you're conscientious, you're organized, and you like to work hard. And that is one of the traits that women are looking for in a potential partner. One good way of seeing that is people that are organized are also disgusted by things that are unorganized. That's the connection between that emotion of disgust. When it comes to agreeableness, well, imagine you being agreeable as a woman, because women are primed in puberty to have children, and therefore a woman can't question an infant during the first 18 months. So if a child cries, a woman can't go arguing with a baby. She needs to tend to it and make sure it gets attention and get dealt with in the proper manner. That's why it's ingrained in the puberty to become agreeable. Unfortunately, there are people that use that, and those are usually disagreeable men, which is not a very good thing to do. But imagine being an agreeable person and living with a disagreeable person. The disagreeable person will consume the person that is very agreeable, and the agreeable will never put their foot down and say enough until it's too late. So that's why those two personalities do not match very well. You need to be equally agreeable or disagreeable, which probably won't work if you both are disagreeable. That will be a very volatile situation, or equally agreeable. Lastly, we have the openness to exploration. Openness is basically lateral thinking. As an open personality, you can conceptualize things in your head without even seeing it. And you can put yourself in someone else's situation. For example, empathizing. Being a good listener is often connected to being openness in exploration, because listening and understanding your partner is essential in order for there to be peace and to negotiate and deliver and communicate properly. So if you're open in your personality, you'll have a higher possibility of understanding your partner. And that's why women go for men that are open in their personalities. Usually they are also engineers or system analysts, because those types of personalities have higher IQ and have an easier way to conceptualize and understand a system for a system thinking. Unfortunately, men have a lower mean of empathy, which also puts them in a risk of being autistic, which there's a limit of when you come down below 30 on an 80 scale. That's where the risk of being autistic starts to get higher. And women's mean are much higher. They're about 50 with a standard variance of 12. And the men have a standard variance of 12.5. And that is also a reason why there's a problem when men can't identify the emotion that a woman has. That's connected to the autistic trait, because autistic people can't see the emotion and understand the emotion in their counterpart when they're watching them. But they do, however, reply in a good manner with the right emotion. That's empathy for you. So there you have the psychological similarities that men and women look for in particular. Now, there are dissimilarities that men and women look for. But that's due to competition, because of course you want to maximize your probability of finding the perfect partner, and women have a longer list than males do. And of course, the risk for a woman is much higher and much greater than that for a male. So that's why dissimilarities have come into play, perhaps because when women, which are very understandable and understand their value of attractiveness, when they compete with other women, they know how to compete with them because they know their worth and their values as being attractive or non-attractive. And that makes them pick men with different traits according to that. And they actually do have to compromise in order to have a family. You can't forget that men and women are social living creatures that do want to make a family. And in order to do that, sometimes you need to compromise, and maybe you can't find the perfect man or woman, but you don't want to be lonely, because being lonely actually is connected to your pain circuit in your brain, and you will feel pain for being lonely since you are a social personality. That's why we don't get always what we want and settle for less than we should have sometimes. But in order for the whole world to reproduce, we need to find even dissimilarities sometimes. Lastly, I want to speak to you guys out there, especially you that uses a lot of perfume or deodorant that smell a lot. It turns out that women can actually smell the human leukocyte antigen in a potential partner if she had a good relationship with her father. That means that she can actually smell her father's human leukocyte antigen in a partner and be attracted to that in a man. So before you go on and buying Axe deodorant and spraying all your body so that everyone suffocates around you, if you want to find a woman that really likes you and is attracted to you on that level, do not spray on too much perfume or deodorant, because that will work to your disadvantage. Imagine concealing your true odor and the woman, when you shower, smell that you don't smell like her father. That's a big no-no. So for your own sake, you can always count on your genes, and if she finds your genes smelling good, then that's in favor for you, and that she keeps on being attractive in you as a man. So don't put that cologne on. That was it about men and women and what we are attracted to. Bear in mind, this is scientific evidence. Of course, there can be other evidence coming later on, but that it is so far. If you have any questions or remarks for the video, put it in the comment down below, and I'll probably do some more videos about sexual attraction and how you can extrapolate from the information I just gave you. Cheers, everyone!
Ooh.